Okay, good day and welcome everyone to our first amazing, as I believe, podcast, Privacity Chronicles. And today here am I, Anton, with me my colleague Kate,
Hi
and
everyone.
yeah, and we have our guest, our first guest today. The guest that I'm really happy to have here is Natalija Bitiukova. She is a really privacy pro, a global privacy pro actually, and what she does, she is a lawyer and data protection officer at IKEA and holds such certificates as SIP-E, SIP-T, SIP-M, and FIP. We will ask her about all this stuff. So Natalia, welcome here, and we are happy to hear you here.
Thank you so much for having me. Hello, everyone.
Great. Okay, so the idea of today's show is to introduce our listeners to Natalia, about to tell about a bit about her experience, about her vision of privacy, how she sees actually all these privacy challenges that come up to DPOs in different corporations, and to talk in more detail about privacy compliance in worldwide retail corporation and how to handle it and how to actually work with it in an effective manner, both for company and for the data subjects, of course. So, Natalia, can you tell our listeners a bit about yourself? What we need to know about you?
Of course, I can. My name is Natalia. As mentioned, I'm a data protection officer working for IKEA Retail, Inca Group. I'm a lawyer by training, and I've been in the legal and regulatory space for some 13 years by now. That experience both from nonprofit, public, and the business as well. Out of the interesting facts about me, I'm a true EU citizen and I'm enjoying all the free movement guarantees. I come from one EU country, from Lithuania. I live in another one, which is Denmark, and I work in the third one in Sweden. So I actually commute from Copenhagen to our beautiful offices in Malmo over the bridge.
Oh, thank you very much. That's really interesting. And why did you actually choose privacy as your domain? What was your path? Why did you decide to do all this privacy stuff?
Because the catchy answer would be I didn't choose privacy, privacy chose me. But the reality is that the intersection of law and technology was always kind of close to my heart. It's just perhaps the lenses I was looking at this problem have changed over time. So I started my career as a human rights lawyer, focusing primarily on research and litigation across human rights domains. So criminal justice, victim rights, non-discriminations, freedom of expression, and right to privacy. So contrary to a popular belief, right to privacy was there way before GDPR. So my career has later taken me to Brussels, where I worked for the European Data Protection Supervisor, which is data protection authority with both enforcement and public policy mandates. And later I started applying my knowledge in business, firstly as a consultant and later on as an in-house counsel and a data protection officer. I think I was really lucky to gain the experience from all three sectors, which kind of gives me this good 360 understanding of a lot of privacy conundrums I'm dealing with on a daily basis. It really helps talking to a variety of stakeholders from different paths of life.
Yeah, actually, I saw that you have many certificates, like IAP certificates, and
Yep.
I know that many young lawyers for now, and maybe not lawyers, other privacy professionals are seeking to get them. For example, we with Kate have SIP-E certificates, and I'm preparing for SIP-US now, and Kate for SIP-T for now. And can you? How do you think does having such certificates help the young lawyers to get into privacy right now?
Hmm. I don't think the certificate is a goal in itself, but for
Hmm.
me, it is a great demonstration of your aptitude to learning and your continuous development. I personally believe that the biggest value out of certification comes from all the work that you put into learning, reflecting on what you're learning during the learning process when you're studying, let's say for the exam, and actually taking those methodologies that you learn from the books and applying almost immediately in your daily work, just testing them out and seeing what comes out of this. And then diploma is, of course, a very nice cherry on top that you get and you can add to your LinkedIn profile and demonstrate to prospective employers.
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, I also think that implementing is really important when you try to something new to put in your works, try to communicate with your colleagues about new trends, some features, and so on. That's awesome. Okay, thanks for such answers. Let's move on to our topic of today's. It's privacy compliance in worldwide retail corporation. Kate, maybe you can start with our questions about actually the specifics of tasks the DPO in such corporation should be doing and so on.
Yeah, sure, gladly, because it's like very interesting because any consumer at some point when he's shopping online, he's very concerned that the corporations know everything about him or her. They're so super concerned that cookies applied on the website are like spying on them across all the internet and sell all the data to any some wild corporations that mostly do advertisement market, for example. But when you're working for industry, when you're inside, corporation, does it feel like that when you're working with privacy? What do you do in IKEA to help people feel that they are cared for?
Of course. Maybe I will start with explaining what my role is to the listeners who might be less familiar with the DPO role, and also because there are no two same DPOs and our roles slightly differ. But at its basics, DPO is a statutory role under the General Data Protection Regulation. And my work on kind of broadest meta level can be divided into two streams. So one stream is informing and advising the business on all sort of things that Kate just mentioned, but there is another important stream of work is monitoring businesses' compliance with the data protection law. So let me just zoom in very quickly on each of those streams and just give you a couple of examples what I could be doing. So on inform and advise, my work can really take different shapes and forms depending on what is happening in the regulatory space at that moment and what the business needs. So it can start with setting privacy objectives and developing privacy framework or processes such as transfer impact assessment process, legitimate interest assessment process for all the group companies in IKEA and Inca Group. It can also be about setting companies' position on different regulatory developments. So just a couple of weeks ago, we had an announcement of EU-US data privacy framework. It has come out. We have nice press releases. What does it actually mean for the business? How are we supposed to change our ways of working right now? What it means to our consumers? What do we have to do from tomorrow on or a year later on? So developing that position and securing that approach with the management, as well as communicating it across both SMEs and on non-SMEs in the companies is also part of my role. And it can be almost a third. Say again?
No. We just can proceed. I just thought maybe you would like me to ask something like more in details about what you work. What is the most challenge? What is the biggest challenge that you encountered in achieving all these goals that you mentioned, especially in data transfer, because data transfer is such a like head pain because everyone is so concerned about their data being transferred outside of European Union. Everyone is so shocked that Google has something on them, and everyone is constantly asking not to share the data with Google precisely. So sometimes it can be like a real big challenge to explain to people that we do everything in our regards that we can do to safeguard everything. So what is the biggest challenge for you as well?
I think there are topical challenges, as you have alluded right now, and international data transfer has been a challenge for me, and I was working with this topic as the majority of privacy professionals for the last couple of years at least. With the announcement of the framework, my position is to stay cautiously optimistic, but still to have a plan B, because we know from experience that the first two frameworks unfortunately haven't stood the court's scrutiny.
Yeah.
So we might want third time around to be more cautious with our approaches and perhaps to have some other fallback options for data transfers, such as in addition to the framework, to still maintain standard contractual clauses and all the good work that we have put in place with transfer impact assessments, engaging with the vendors, putting in place supplementary measures is not gone just yet. But if I need to look at the challenges on perhaps a bit of the higher level than a specific privacy topic, I think there is a peculiarity of work in the global retail company. It is not the most highly regulated industry like finance, let's say, or pharma. There are definitely different set of challenges that young professionals should be aware of if they're planning, if they're seeing their future in such a corporation. So with the first one is it's important to understand that a modern retailer is an omni-channel, data-driven business.
Yeah.
It's not your usual brick and mortar store. It's as much about digital business as it is about the over-the-counter retail. It really became acutely apparent during pandemic and post-pandemic, but essentially what it means in practice that our daily work and the highest privacy risks are not coming from the store. They're coming from the digital solutions, variety of cutting edge technology that is constantly changing and evolving, and our teams are trying to put in place in order to facilitate the best experience for the customers. And of course, it means that we're on the constant learning journey with them. There is another aspect of the retail business which is different from, let's say, B2B environment. Retail is B2C business, which means that whenever we're implementing privacy by design into our solutions, first and foremost, we have to be thinking about customer, because customer will be there using those solutions and being all the time on the front and challenging us in case they're seeing that something is going wrong. And then we have the multi-jurisdictional aspect. So it's a global company, and although DPO is a GDPR enforced role, it's an role under the EU law, we can't discount the Brussels effect of the GDPR and the fact that we see privacy legislation emerging across the globe. We see the spillover effects. Just right now, the whole LinkedIn is buzzing about Indian data protection law. We've been waiting for that for a really long time, so we cannot discount that effect. So what is the challenge here is finding an optimal model of privacy program, which is centralized and uniform enough, but takes into consideration some of the local differences and requirements.
Do you have any, for example, advice or tips how to manage all this multidimensional puzzle of different privacy laws that you must encounter once you're working in a global company? For example, you mentioned you have GDPR like on the EU level, you have the national laws, of course, then you have the US, a giant market with a variety of different laws, and then again we have even more Asian countries that are reviewing the data protection law again, including India, for example, as you mentioned. So how to manage all of that if you're only human?
And you are human. One thing I'm going to say is that it's not one-man job, for sure. There are certainly different solutions and resources online in order to facilitate the comparative analysis of the jurisdictional requirements. But frankly, from my experience and what works best for us in IKEA Retail is having a strong network of dedicating full-time privacy experts in our local organizations. So the model that we have in IKEA is, I would say, not necessarily decentralized, but a mixed model. We have a pretty strong central organization setting up, as much as I mentioned, uniform policies and approaches across the group as possible. But we also have equally strong local organizations with the embedded privacy experts. So a part of their assignment is to follow these regulatory developments on the local level and to bring them up to the central organization so we can build them in the global approach if we're seeing that these requirements are kind of relevant to more market than one. I think it is very important to have a local presence. It is important to be able to communicate in the local language, especially in the B2C sector, with the customers handling data subject requests in the language that is needed, being able to engage with the customer, and also to build the relationships with the industry and the regulators in order to facilitate this two-way of communication. Because we not only have privacy laws on the EU level, national levels, we also have regulatory interpretation of these laws. And even in the EU, it can differ immensely from one member state to another member state. So having a right governance model, which is fit for the size of your organization and the presence of your organization. For some companies, it can be maybe part-time privacy champions, other companies like ours would require full-time employees, it is extremely important to take care of the local dimension.
By the way, Anton, we
That's
were talking
incredibly.
about privacy communication, and I think that you would be interested to ask a couple of questions because it's like your core specialty in how to pay
Yeah,
people
so
that we are GDPR
talking
compliant,
about all
basically.
these so talking about all these challenges, you need to actually follow the regulations all over the world. Like, okay, we got a new law here, a new law here, and now we have to cope with them as well. And on the other hand, we have people, we have data subjects, and they actually don't know usually about laws that are in effect. For instance, of course, everybody knows about GDPR. Some heard about CCPA and all that stuff, but I think that's all. And the idea is that the companies have to communicate in a plain language that is easily understandable and all this stuff. And I think it's a great challenge for a global corporation like IKEA to communicate the privacy program to people in understandable language, because you have so many people and clients, so many data subjects. So how actually maybe you can advise to other privacy professionals how to build this privacy communication in a way that data subjects will actually trust you, that they will understand what you do with their data and trust you their personal information.
Of course, and I think you highlighted really important aspect here is the trust. And the trust aspect in the B2C sector when you're working with your customer as well as with your co-worker is incredibly important. This is why we really take privacy awareness seriously, and we try going beyond the mandatory privacy notices into something that would hopefully be a plain and clear language. It is a tricky situation here, because when you look at the GDPR requirements of what has to be provided in the privacy notices and the requirement for that to be easily understandable and short, it doesn't kind of square that well together. So I think layering of privacy notices, trying to bring a visual aspect of that via the use of the icons in order to supplement the legally required language is a very important thing that privacy professionals can absolutely facilitate. I think it's also interesting, we are often talking about customers and sometimes we are forgetting our coworkers who are equally data subjects from the perspective of the data protection law. And I don't think it's only about showing them that we are compliant, but I think it is about actively engaging our employees in discussions around privacy implications. So they're able themselves to spot those things early on, and if needed, to bring them to our attention. Because if you think about the employee in the digital organization, in some cases, they're users of certain digital solutions, and in other cases, they are product owners of these solutions themselves. So what we would like them to be is at their core, raise questions, bring those solutions to us as soon as possible if they spot something, but also have their own understanding and have their own point of view about them. So what we haven't done to facilitate that beyond awareness sessions and trainings to different departments, well, we just take different case studies and discuss with the employees what do they think about it, what would be their reasonable expectations and data subjects about data processing. My colleagues have organized a variety of privacy events internally in IKEA. We have done privacy escape rooms, GDPR quizzes with prizes and different cross-departmental teams, cross-departmental privacy panels with internal speakers, someone who is not a privacy pro, but someone who works maybe in people and culture. Maybe they work in sustainability, maybe they work in marketing, and they have opinion about privacy. So we would invite them to the panel and make sure we have a diverse view so we hear from them. We have had external talks and a lot of similar activities just to bring people to that good level of awareness and facilitate privacy culture.
Yes,
So having
thank you
privacy
for such an
champions
answer.
is very important. Yeah.
Just you remind me. We both with Kate and with you studied in Mykolas Romaris University, and some time ago, and there was a course of gamification, and we were together with Kate, and we managed to develop a game like it was kind of Munchkin, but for privacy. And the idea was that you can like steal the skill from DPO and so on. And it was like some kind of gaming experience, and it was really good. And second point, you mentioned about actually helping your coworkers to embrace privacy program. I agree totally with that possible effect, because also we with Kate had different trainings for mostly tech companies, and we told them how privacy work, that companies actually in compliance about all that trust, and then they actually understood that, wait a minute, we are so cool, we are doing such great things to our customers, and then they became some kind of privacy ambassadors for the people, and actually wanted to help them. Yeah, that was cool. Okay, we have our last question for today. It's about different cutting edge tech products that actually shape today's privacy compliance, and are a challenge for DPOs, for privacy champions, and privacy people all around the world. So let's talk about a bit about them. I think the most recent challenge is actually AI, the generative AI, where people put all around all their personal data, and then it is used somehow by someone, and so on. So, do you think that AI is a threat or a benefit for users regarding privacy?
I think, like with a lot of technology, it's not necessarily a threat per se. It's about how you're going to use it. And if, from my experience, I can recommend something to the in-house privacy professionals, it is in order to be able to advise on AI or cutting edge technology, first to be able to know that they are developing this technology in-house or about to buy it. And this is where the trick comes in. So first and foremost, what you want to have when you think about you being a real partner to the business is to have a very robust system of internal controls that privacy to ensure that privacy organization is involved in the development of such products if they're developed in-house, or in the procurement of such products as early as possible. And if needed, those should be made as an escalations to the data protection officer, because this is one of the core tenets of the privacy by design process, right? So it's anticipatory compliance. It's not something that is bolted on top at the very end of the journey when we're about to start using AI technology. This conversation has to happen much earlier on. And being smart about how the system of these internal controls looks like is really something that privacy professionals should spend some time on. Understanding where the purchases are happening, how the software development process looks like. It will really require spending a bit of time in your organization because these processes are not the same across. Second challenge is, I think, is having time in itself. Such a fast-paced environment, and also the development and the rollout of the products can be really time-demanding, and there is a lot of pressure that internal teams are under to start using something fast. So I think making sure that you have time on your hands and product teams are going to spend time with you in order to explain that solution to you. You cannot provide advice on something you don't fully understand. So they have time to sit down and explain it to you is extremely important. And lastly, I think where our next kind of frontier of thinking will be is how the role of privacy professional and the DPO specifically is changing with the coming in of the sectoral legislation, such as an AI Act. AI Act doesn't have embedded DPO role. However, we know that AI solutions are regulated under the privacy laws extensively already. With this new piece of legislation, is it coming to your desk? Are you responsible here for the compliance, overseeing the compliance, or there is another function? It's really important to start thinking about it earlier than later, because the AI Act will be adopted in no time, and those couple of years of grace period will also pass. But the governance discussion has to happen earlier on.
Mhm. Thank you for such an answer.
So we
Yes.
have to be prepared to tackle AI on our own at first, as a first line of defense, I would say. So all the data protection impact assessments, all the GDPR stress assessments, all the privacy by design problems, everything, if maybe DPO is the first person who will have to encounter them, of course. And maybe
I
after
think
that we should advise.
privacy organization is already quite well equipped to deal with a lot of these challenges, and it's been dealt with historically. But I think we shouldn't discount the additional requirements that are coming in and make sure that if it's there, if it is kind of put on the table of a certain organization, it's followed with a upskilling and additional resources, and again, time, as I have mentioned, to prepare.
Yeah,
Sure,
sure.
and on the other hand, so we have technologies that actually challenge the privacy, and we have technologies that are embraced by privacy professionals and engineers, so-called PETs, so privacy enchanting technologies. They are on its race right now. Most of them are only technologies, but not solutions now. But on the other hand, day by day, the companies start implementing them in different niches like medtech and so on. And I think that implementing such technologies is a great idea, is a great point by making privacy by default more by default. And on the other hand, it's a great challenge because such technologies are not really quite stable in many cases, and the technologies may be a problem, not a solution in some case. Okay, so I think that's basically all for today. Natalia, we welcome you. We are thankful for you very much for joining us. See yourself, I don't know, in LinkedIn, and see our self posts about this podcast in LinkedIn. And today's Privacy Chronicles episode number 1 is officially finished. I thank you one more time for being here with us.
Again, thank you
Thank you
very
so much
much
for
for the
having me.
expertise.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Yeah.
See you.